So in this video we have a really special card that is not the traditional card that we make. It actually leaves room for those little photos that you send out during the holidays of you and your family, you and your pets or whatever. There's also room inside for a nice little note, and it's just a little bit different than what we're accustomed to making, and I really think the card's really adorable. It has the caption built right into it. And we're going to go ahead and put it together here. So what we want to do first is we can go ahead and begin putting our little panels on. Now the first thing you want to do, you'll notice that there's two sets of score marks on here, and that is because this is a bit of a box, I guess you could call it. I mean, it's not really a box, but it does have two sets of score marks on it, and you want to make sure that you fold both because it is a little bit dimensional. And so you want to get that all nice and folded and prepared, and then we can go ahead and begin just putting our panels on. Okay, so got that nice and folded and nice and prepped, and we can go ahead and begin with our panels here. Now we actually emboss these with an embossing folder from Tailored Expressions. It's called Snowfall, and this is what the panels look like. Now if you if you overlap them, you'll notice that they are exactly the same size, so it doesn't matter which ones you use on the front or which ones you use on the inside. Okay, those are going to go just like that. Okay, so we can go ahead and begin with just that process here. So I'm going to go ahead and put my glue on my little panels here. Just make sure that you get good coverage on there, especially out towards the edges. Okay, so get our panels on first. And then you also want to make sure that when you're putting these down, that you get them nice and centered so that you've got a nice even border going all the way around. And just push and hold that down until it sets. Okay, so we can do the other side here, and that's this guy here. The little snowfall. Actually, any embossing folder is going to look good as long as it's seasonal. Maybe you have some larger snowflakes. Maybe you even have one that embosses little Christmas captions on it. Anytime we can add embossing to a paper project, it's just going to make it that much more special. So definitely take advantage of embossing if you have an embossing machine. If you don't, I personally use the Cuttlebug by Cricut. Okay, let's just make sure that we get that nice and aligned, and just push that down. Okay, give it a second to set. So that is already looking pretty darn cute. Okay, we can open it up and get our embossing folders on the inside. And now again, there are two sets of score marks here, so make sure that you're centering it inside of the second score mark. Okay, so same thing here. Just get your glue on there. Make it real thin. You don't want it to warp, but you also want to make sure that you get it out to the edges and that you're centering it nicely on your project so you have a nice even border going all the way around. Okay. Had a little bit of glue come out there. That's okay. All right. That looks good. And go ahead and put glue on this panel here. Nice thin lines. Move that nozzle nice and quick so it doesn't stay in one place too long, so you don't get a bunch of glue shooting out. Okay. And again, get that nice and centered. There we go. Okay. That's perfect. And now while we're on the inside here, we have these little snowflakes. I took and I inked these with a nice pink ink. Okay, and we're going to go ahead and glue those right to the edge there. And this little piece has a lot of detail. So you want to kind of work quick and try to get that glue into as many of those little nooks and crannies as you can, just to make sure that it stays. Okay. And you want to align the edge of that with the edge of this little panel here, and then push down and get that to set. Now if you happen to miss a little area, it's okay. You can always go in and touch it up. There we go. Okay, so we got our little snowflake peeking out through the side there. Let me find my other snowflake and do the same thing with this guy here. Just kind of put little dots into these little nooks and crannies. Make sure that you get it out there to the edge so you don't get a little piece that peels up when your recipient opens their card. Just little dots. That's perfect. And align that with the edge there. And just push that down and let it set. Okay. All right, so far so good. All right. Okay, so the next thing we can do is take this large, it's kind of like a square, but it's actually a rectangle. It's slightly taller than it is wider. And we are going to glue that right to the inside there. Going real thin on the glue, making sure that I'm getting glue out to the edges. And I'm going to center that right in the center there. And then use the bottoms of the two sides as kind of guides to make sure that you have it perfectly lined up at the bottom. And just push that down until it gets a nice hold. Okay, just like that. And we have this little piece here. We're going to fold these tabs in. We're going to put glue on the tabs, and then we are going to glue this like this to create a little pocket for our little note or our little photo. Okay, so I'm going to put glue on the tabs. And then I'm also going to put a little thin line towards the edge. Okay, and I'm going to use my finger to kind of spread that out. I need a little more than that. Just want to spread this glue out to the edge so we get a nice clean seam. Okay, and just fold those tabs in so that when we take this and push it down, all those tabs, they really grip and get a hold. Okay, just like that. And a little bit of glue there, but that's okay. There's going to be a panel that's going to go over that with our little caption. So don't worry if you get a little bit of glue on your project. I'm going to work that glue out of there. Had a little bit of glue that just smeared there. Okay, so that is nice. Okay, and we have this piece here that's going to get glued on like this. Has our caption cut out so that the color behind it shows through. And you're going to have a little bit of a border showing right there, and that is by design. So we can go ahead and get our glue on this piece here. And again, just make sure you get that glue out to the edge. That's my biggest pet peeve, I think, is little edges that are just kind of sticking up. It's not the end of the world, but okay, so just line that up with the bottom. Okay, so you have a nice little border at the top. Okay, make sure you get it nice and centered. Push that down. Let it get a nice hold. There we go. There's your little pocket. Okay, now Speaking of that, we've included a little note card here that you can stamp or journal on. You can do a print to cut, whatever you want to do. And right here at the top of this thing is just a little notch, like a little U shape. And what you want to do is just want to put your glue right in that area there, and then take your little tree and glue that so that the bottom of that tree butts up against that little U shape. That's kind of a little placeholder so you know exactly where to put this thing. Okay, so let that sit, and that's going to slide in just like that. Okay, let me just get it all the way in there. There we go. Okay, so our interior is pretty much done. Okay, we have the nice finish there. And what we're going to do is we're going to put our little panel on the front. Okay, and that is also going to be nice and centered. So we can go ahead and do that. Nice thin lines of glue. If you can get that kind of precision, you don't want the paper to warp. That's one thing that I've gotten a lot better at, is being very subtle with the paper when it comes to gluing, because I know that if you smudge way too much on there, it just doesn't look as good because that glue kind of shows through. Okay, so there we go. Get that nice and centered. And the guy in me sees a home plate here, a little wide one, but nevertheless a home plate. Okay. On the inside, we've got this piece with this piece here. There's it's kind of like a little guide inside to help you with the alignment of the snowflake. So I'm going to go ahead and use my little dot method. And actually, let me clean off my nozzle. It's getting a little caked with glue here. Okay, so I'm going with my dots, trying to get as many as I can, especially out to the extremities of our little snowflake, just to make sure that nothing peels up. It's a really delicate little piece, but it's definitely doable. Just take your time and get it all in there, and then use the little guides on this white piece to help you with the alignment on this. I think it's pretty self-explanatory, but we like to give you guys as many little tips and tools to help you get these projects looking just like they are on the website. Okay, so there's our little cute little snowflake, and that is going to get glued. There are also some guides here to help you with the alignment. Okay, so what we're going to do is we are going to put glue on just the bottom three here. So kind of like this. Just like that. Up to about there. Okay, hopefully you can see that there. And just do your best to use those little guides there to get that nice and centered. And I think I may have put a little bit, yeah, just a tiny little bit over, which is fine. Just make sure that that doesn't get on any of your project. Okay, so that is that. And this flap is actually going to close like this. But we are going to put one more snowflake right on the front here. Okay, and then we're going to put a little bow on it and call it a day. So let me grab this snowflake. This one I inked with a nice lavender purple ink. And it's a little challenging inking this piece because it has so many little details, but wouldn't worry too much about trying to get it all inked. Just as long as you throw a little bit of purple on there or whatever color you decide, just to kind of give it a little bit of interest and change it up so it's not all pale white. It's almost like the sun hitting the snowflake. Almost like a little rainbow effect, which is really pretty. Okay, now with this one here, there's one little piece, and actually let me put some glue in the center here before I continue. Okay, there's one little section here that's kind of cut off. Okay, it's not round, it's cut off. That's the part that goes up at the top with the little hole. Okay, so you just want to make sure that you're putting that piece up here. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to get your ribbon through there. Okay. So that is nice and perfect. Okay, and then what we're going to do is we're going to take this piece here and we're going to glue that right to that part there. And actually, I'm going to go ahead and pop dot it. Let me get my pop dots out. But before I do, there's also another piece that goes right on top of that piece. Okay, so I also inked this with a little bit of purple. I'm going to go ahead and just put some dots on here. Be surprised how little glue you need for a nice permanent bond. You really don't need that much. Okay, and we're going to get that nice and centered on this little circle. Okay, that looks good. I'm going to flip this guy over and grab a 3D Zot or a pop dot, whatever you want to call it, and pop that right in the center, nice and flat. Okay, and that's going to go right here, just like that. Okay, and now, since we have this other snowflake here, we are going to put glue on the entirety of this piece here, except for around the loop and up to maybe here, because we do want that to be somewhat mobile, because we are going to feed a little ribbon through it, just to kind of finish this card off and give it a little extra love. Okay, so that's probably good right there, and you literally just want to match that up with the existing snowflake that's on the other side. Okay, so you're going to glue that right there. You can kind of flip this up and kind of jimmy it into place. Shimmy it, I should say. Okay, there we go. That's cute. Okay, so there is our card. Now, what I also want to do before we put our ribbon on, I want to show you the envelope real quick. Okay, so here's the main part of the envelope. You want to go ahead and just make sure that you have everything folded. Okay, also take this piece and fold this piece as well. Okay, and you're going to take this piece and we're going to be gluing this to this piece. Now, the way that we design this is that there's a nice little border above it, okay, like that. So when you're placing this, place it pretty close to the score marks, but not over them, okay? You want to be able to just barely see the score marks. So let's do that first. So I'm going to go ahead and put glue on this part here. Okay. And I'm just kind of working it real quick so I don't get a lot on there. I don't want to cake it with glue. And I'm just going to take this and slide it in there, butt it up to almost all the way up against it, but not quite. And then just kind of push down for a second, flip it over, and then use your fingers to kind of wiggle it around and make sure that you're not seeing too much of the color showing through on the sides, just on the top. Push that down, make sure it gets a good grip. There we go. All right, next step is taking and putting glue on this tab. I want to get it on the whole tab, and then also get a nice little line of glue out to the edge. And I'm going to take my finger and work that glue out so it's nice and thin right up to the edge. And line that up nicely so it's nice and centered. And just push that tab over and push it down. Got a little glue that's smeared out, that's okay. That'll dry, it's not gonna mess anything up. Okay, there we go. So that is your flap. You're gonna fold these in, you're gonna fold that up, and we're gonna put a little bit of glue just along this edge here. Just like that. And we're gonna close this up and push that down and let it dry to create our envelope. Just being kind of patient with this, just make sure that it gets a good grip. There is your lovely envelope for your card. And I'm gonna go ahead and spend a few minutes here discussing some embellishments as well as the little bow to finish this off. Okay, so let's go ahead and make our little bow. Now, one thing I want to show you here is that you should probably, if you want, add a little bling to the inside of your card around the snowflakes. And here's a few little rhinestones here, and then a couple here on either side of the Mary and the Merry Christmas. Okay, so let's close this up. Let's put it aside. We've got this little loop here that we're going to put our bow through. Actually, not the bow, but it's going to look like it anyway. I got my hot melt glue ready to go here. Okay, so I'm going to take my ribbon here, and I'm going to leave a little bit of. Okay, so I'm going to take my ribbon here, and I'm going to leave a little bit over here for the tail on the left. Okay, and we want this bow to be about 1 3/4 inches with each loop. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and use my little guide here just to make sure that I've got it right. It doesn't have to be perfect right off the bat. We can always adjust it as we go. Okay, so there's one loop on each side. We got a tail there. Okay, so I'm going to create a second loop on this side and another loop over here. So we got 2 loops. Okay, this is going to be our 3rd loop here. And then we've got our 3rd loop here, and then our tail. Okay. Can use this little handy dandy little thing here to kind of push that into place. And then we can take our wire and just tie it. And that'll hold it in place nicely. Okay. There we go. Pop it out. We have our little bow. And this ribbon, I believe it has little pieces of wire in there just to kind of make dressing it up a lot easier. I'm going to take my wire cutters and I'm going to cut off the excess wire there. We don't need that. You can also use string if you have string. I just had the wire, so I'm using that, and I can kind of smush it down too. And that looks cute. Okay, so we want our tail. Let me get my scissors out. I'm gonna place this where I think it needs to be, and then kind of decide how long I want my tail. I'm gonna cut my tail about there. And grab the other one here and try to match that up as closely as possible. Okay. All right, so then the idea is to take a little bit of this, okay, we're gonna feed it through this little loop here. Just like that. And we're gonna tie our bow. We want it about here. So we're gonna go ahead and just tie a knot here and cut off any excess that we have. Okay, so as I said, we're gonna go ahead and feed that through there like this. I'm gonna put my bow right there, and I'm just gonna tie a little knot just to get it to kind of stick and stay in place there. And then we can just cut off any excess that we might have there. Okay. Just like that. Cut that off. Okay, so that's nice and in place. Okay, and then I'm going to take just a little bit of hot melt glue and put it on the back of this whole thing. And that will not only keep the, a second here, it'll not only keep the bow together, it'll kind of keep it from falling forward. I'm just going to push that down, get that in place. I'll make it sit nicely. So there is your card, all nice and done, ready to go for your little photo or caption or stamp. And you've got a nice little envelope to go with it. I'd probably put it in bow first, just so that the tail can hang, and seal that up, and you are ready to go. Stay on top of all things Dreaming Tree and engage with us today. Get the latest news and enter in our giveaways on Facebook. Get inspired by following us on Pinterest. Be the first to see our new product launches on Instagram. Do you prefer Twitter? Yep, we're there too. Watch our beautiful product trailers and assembly tutorials on YouTube. For more information, visit www.3dsvg.com. Live, craft, love, and dream.